Thanks for checking out this movie review video. And as people have said, Hobgoblins is fun. This is a very fun film. I had gotten this from Vinegar Syndrome. I love this cover art for the slipcover. It's amazing. And it means even more once you've seen the film because of the vault where all of the hobgoblins come from. But let's get into this. Let's talk about Hobgoblins. I enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun with it. But it's not a good film, obviously. Written and directed by Rick Sloane, who also did Blood Theater, The Visitants, Vice Academy 1 through 6, Marked for Murder, Good Girls Don't, excuse me, Mind, Body, and Soul, Babe Watch, Forbidden Parody, and Hobgoblins 2. Apparently there is a Hobgoblins 2. I need to look for that. It was a $15,000 budget, and it was filmed in a week, so obviously super low independent film. The film sold so well on video that Sloane turned down a 10-picture deal with Empire, which was Charles Band's company at that point. Apparently, this was part of one of the featurettes that's on here of an interview with Rick Sloane himself, which he's very aware of what the film is and what it's turned into, which is super nice. He's cool about it. But he was saying that he turned down this 10-picture deal because he was being offered $6,000 per film with a $30,000 budget for each film. And he was just like, he literally said, I make 10 times that on one movie. So gives you an idea of what the video sales for Hobgoblins was like. John Carradine was actually offered the role of the old man McCready, who owned, or sorry, not him, the old man who owns the studio. I think they call him Comstock at one point. But he ended up wanting too much money. The director even said, writer, director, producer even said, Sloane, that he wanted $8,400. He's like, that's half our budget, basically. So we couldn't do it. But they could have gotten John Carradine if they had a little more money. That would have been cool. Plenty of scenes were actually shot without permits. This was truly a guerrilla style of filmmaking, which I have a little place in my heart for because I'm from near Baltimore. John Waters did a lot of guerrilla-style filmmaking. I have actually done that before when I was doing small independent film stuff. The problem is, like, getting permits is very expensive, so that means if you're a no-budget or low-budget film, it becomes very hard to actually make a film. So I don't think it's cool that you have to get permits for all this stuff. Has received the MST3K treatment. I have not seen that version of the film, but I really want to after seeing this. I wonder if they did an update and have a riff tracks as well. Oh yeah, I think they do because they did they did it live. I need to track that down. Well, I know where it is. I'll watch it. All right, getting into the film. Dennis seems like a pretty awful security guard, too busy air drumming and doesn't care about answering the phone. Yeah, he's supposed to embody like a bad employee because then when he ends up getting killed by the hobgoblins in the vault, you don't feel bad for him. It's kind of like, okay. And McCready doesn't feel bad either. And you also get the idea that this has been going on multiple times when McCready kind of like covers up his death in a very like, oh, well, there we go way. And then makes a comment later in the film to the owner of the studio, who I assume is being called Comstock, and saying to him that they've gone through a lot of people, or I think maybe Comstock said to him that they've gone through a lot of other security guards. So you get the idea it's happened a lot. You would have thought that at this point McCready would have done something to deal with it because it appears that it's actually very easy to kill these hobgoblins, to be honest. Very easy. The head of the studio is a real ball buster. McCready isn't getting any younger, so he's actually going to be slower, but it's just so funny because he just keeps yelling at him. Reminds me a lot of the police commissioner in the film Samurai Cop. He's just constantly yelling. He's just always pissed off, and he doesn't even have, like, legitimate gripes. It's just the way that character's done. But, you know, it's a low budget, so bad it's good film, so that's what you're going to get. Like, just expect those things. It makes it funny, too. Like, that adds to the comedy of the film. Dennis's dancing on stage is unbelievable. I love that. That's one of my favorite scenes of the film. The funny that he doesn't actually question what's going on, though, although I think that when the hobgoblins kind of start having you fantasize and they're, like, feeding off you at that point, that you're kind of like in a dream state where you're just like, oh, this is reality. I'm just going along with it. Because in dreams, like, you just go with it. So I'm assuming that's what it was. But when I first watched it, I was like, it's weird that he's not like questioning what's happening. Like, he's on the stage, but the dancing, loved it. Good job, Dennis. You get the idea that Dennis isn't the first victim based on how quickly MacReady acts to cover up his death. Already kind of touched on that. Since Kevin is such a wholesome-seeming go-getter, you believe that he'll be the one who survives, because he stands in contrast to Dennis in the very beginning. Dennis doesn't really care. Seems like a, I don't want to say scumbag necessarily, but not a great person, at least not a great employee. And Kevin shows up. He's ready to go. He's going to take notes. He's a good, nice, wholesome-seeming dude. So you immediately know as an audience member, oh, he'll survive. Would have been a great twist if he didn't, but he does survive. Kevin has some odd friends. One lies about having a girlfriend. One talks about how he wants to shoot someone so badly, and the other berates him for not renting pornography. Like, it's so funny because like these singular things about these characters basically end up defining them, and that's supposed to drive what their fantasies end up being, so they have to make a big deal out of those things, because then when the Hobgoblins start messing with them that, oh, like, this is their fantasy. We already know this about them. So I understand the reason for it, but it's just kind of funny because they picked some odd ways to have them be. I like how Kyle keeps trying to sneak off to call Fantasia, with a Z, by the way. Fantasia with a Z. Kind of funny. And speaking of Fantasia, she has a very unique style of phone sex. How she arouses people is very specific. It's very interesting, in my opinion. It's unique. And I felt like I needed to comment on that, and it adds to the comedy of the film, obviously. How ridiculous is the Rake versus Ho fight? They really milked that scene for as much as they could. Like, it just went on and on and on. Reminded me a lot, actually, of the fight scene that ends up ending in nut grabbing in Tammy and the T-Rex, or Tanny and the T-Rex, as it says on the title card. But yeah, just like goes on way too long, super ridiculous. The other thing I want to point out is, for Nick to be like an expert at hand-to-hand combat who's going to teach Kevin how to do it, who knows nothing apparently, Kevin really held his own and made Nick not look that great. It kind of seemed like the whole time they're just like, hitting sticks, and it's like, Kevin doesn't look like an expert. Or no, Kevin doesn't look like an expert, but neither does Nick at this point. So you also get the idea from that Nick's a whole lot of bluster. He's just like this macho, I'm the man, and there's really nothing to it. Let's just acknowledge for how much of an expert at combat Nick is supposed to be. Kevin isn't. Kevin really makes Nick look unimpressive, right? So what was this dude with the knife trying to accomplish? We don't know. That's the interesting thing. The guy with the knife in the leather jacket who sneaks onto the studio property, and they start going after him, and then they chase him, and then he just gets away, basically. And we have no idea why he was there. Like, he was just there. He puts the knife to MacReady's neck. He doesn't say anything about what he wants or what he's trying to do or anything like that. He's just thrown in there. There's like no thought to like fleshing out what he's actually doing or motive or anything like that. It's just like, introduce character, get someone to run after him to find the vault, Kevin, open it up, let the Hobgoblins out, and that character's done with. But just needed to move this plot forward. Pretty funny. When you first see the Hobgoblins, it's a great reveal of kind of cool and more crappy. Plus, you can tell that they can't really move very well. So, like, their movements are going to be very, like, static, very wooden. Yeah, it's funny because, like, first glimpse, I was like, oh, they don't look too bad design-wise. But then when you keep looking at them longer, you're like, yeah, they look pretty crappy, actually. And then you can tell that, like, their mouths can basically move like this. And, like, none of their limbs, like, can be articulated. It's just, like, they're stuffed animals, in essence. Like, everyone's seen those, like, the stuffed animals you can put your hand in as a puppet and just move the mouth. It's the same thing, like, and they're, like, super fake-looking fur. Really funny. They look to me like a mix between a gremlin and the cat Ghoulie. That's what it looked like to me. If those two had a love child, Gremlin and Cat Ghoulie love child, it's Hobgoblins. Just saying. Let's add that to the lore. Excuse me. I like how McCready gives Kevin the backstory, and Kevin is sure people would listen to that wacky tale and believe it. Yeah, he's just like, oh my gosh, you filled me in on what's going on. We got to get you to tell everybody. And then promptly, McCready does nothing. Kevin goes out and is just like, I'm going to solve this issue. I let him out. I'm going to fix it. And McCready's just like, okay, knowing how dangerous they are and telling Kevin they're very dangerous and explaining everything, he's just like, I'm just going to stay here. It's like he's so hands off. He's like, I have no responsibility for this. It's whatever. It makes you wonder how many other times these things have gotten out. It's funny to me. And when the Hobgoblins get loose, you then understand why all of Kevin's friends are super fixated on one thing each. Going back to what I was talking about is that needed to exemplify what their fantasy is going to end up being. Daphne's struggle with the Hobgoblin on the lawn, super funny, loved it. That's one of those scenes that you really do see how much their limbs don't move. It's just like flailing around, like I said, like stuffed animals. That was a funny scene. I like how Nick's first inclination isn't to call the police when all this craziness is going on, but instead to try and use a grenade. He was gonna blow up the entire house. I believe that was Amy's house. He was gonna blow up Amy's house in order to take these things out. Wouldn't you think the thing you do first is call the police, call animal control? Because they thought they were animals at first. Like, call animal control. Don't grab a grenade. And I mean, the fact that he just has a grenade, that's a problem. Pause for horror hydration. So Kyle's Fantasia delusion reminds me a lot of the delusion in Troll 2. Well, not a delusion, but the scene in Troll 2 with the corn woman, corn lady. If anyone has seen Troll 2, you'll know what I'm talking about. But they seem very similar to me, like someone trying to bait someone and kill them, and it's very odd, not greatly done, and it's a so bad it's good film. So that reminded me of that. After an animal attack, Kyle is thinking about phone sex, and Nick floats the idea of having a threesome with Amy and Daphne. Not acting like real human beings. Again, you have Nick, he's like, let me throw a grenade at this. Then he immediately, after they just got done with this, is just like, Daphne, Amy, you want to go for a threesome here? And Kyle immediately is just like, gotta get some more of my Fantasia fix. Need more of that very unique phone sex. It's very nice that Reputation Road has signs signaling how far you're allowed to go in each spot that you're parked in. I thought that was a really funny touch. I really did appreciate that aspect of it. It's like, only kissing here, or you can go all the way if you park here. Love that. Love that concept. I'm into it. The first Hobgoblin goes down so easily that it makes you wonder why McCready couldn't have gotten rid of them sooner. 100%. Like I said before, McCready has done nothing. You get the idea that he doesn't really even care that much, because it is demonstrated throughout this film it's very easy to kill these things. Kyle missing the Hobgoblin right in front of him with the wrench, awesome. That's when he's in the van, Kevin's pinned in the van and the Hobgoblin's on top of him, and Kyle's trying to hit it, and it's literally like this far away from him, and he's trying to hit it with this wrench, and he just keeps going to the sides, like, too funny. But then again, like I said, it adds to the cheese of this film. It's wonderful. Nick literally does seem dense enough to not pick up on the exchange that goes on between Daphne and Road Rash outside of Club Scum, where she's basically like, I've been banging you, and he's like, when are we gonna bang again? And Nick's just there, like, nothing. And all this was being said loud enough for him to easily hear it, and he's just like, do. I don't know. Maybe he's down with it. I mean, he floated the threesome with Amy and Daphne earlier. Maybe they're kind of open. They could be poly. I don't know. So random that they show an entire song at Club Scum with a super sparse crowd. Yeah, that's the first thing, is they couldn't get enough extras to really like pack this bar, even though it has like the sounds of being a packed bar. And then they sit down, and you're subjected to an entire song done by the band, which I think they're called the Fontanelles. Not bad. I enjoyed the song. I thought it was pretty cool. So actually, I enjoy the fact that the whole song was in there. It's just a weird choice, you know? I just think it's probably like the director was just like, I really like this band. Let's put a whole song in here. An inordinate amount of time is spent at at Club Scum. Like, you got the idea based off what McCready was saying about, like, they could be going anywhere. They're attracted to bright lights. All this stuff that, like, there's going to be a series of locations that they have to follow these hobgoblins to, and, like, a series of people that end up being killed by them. Not the case. Like, it's at the house, and then they're at Club Scum, and then they're at Club Scum for a long time, and that's where things basically end. So I was a little caught off guard with that, but that said, still a lot of fun, still loved it, still gonna watch this film again for sure. The best example of the hobgoblins looking awful is the one where the one is running across the top of the bar at Club Scum. Oh my gosh, like you could tell that there was just like someone's hand behind the bar just going like this with it. Hilarious. I loved it. Love all the explosions in the club. And during me watching that featurette, there was something where the director was basically saying that they had the fire marshal on set and they weren't supposed to be doing pyrotechnics the way they were. So they took him into another room and like distracted him and like put music on and stuff and shot while he wasn't paying attention so that they could do what they weren't supposed to be doing. And he said they actually ended up burning the ceiling of that bar. Guerrilla filmmaking, man. I laughed when Nick jumped on the grenade and then burst into flames. Never mind the fact that he then somehow survives it when he was totally engulfed in flames and just doesn't really have burns. He just has like some blood here and there and like bandages. Like he was fully engulfed. Like his face would be all messed up, like everything. He would be third-degree burns everywhere. But it's also funny that like there wasn't more damage to him because he literally jumped on a grenade. He didn't just jump on a fire. It's just kind of funny. Also, that's not obviously what happens with grenades. Like, you don't get lit on fire like that. Funny. I love how they go back to McCready and he hasn't been doing anything to fix the situation. Like, that's when it occurred to me. I was just like, oh my gosh, this whole time, McCready's done nothing. He's literally like, Kevin will take care of it. This is all really my mess, but Kevin will take care of it. Too funny. Oh, hell yes. The dude in the leather jacket showing up at the end for a nunchuck fight is exactly what this film needed. I thought the whole film was very random. Like, a lot of stuff is very left field. But even with me knowing that going into the end of the film, I did not foresee the leather jacket dude showing up with nunchucks and there being a fight. And I just, like, my level of enjoyment went to, like, Nirvana at that point. I was just like, yes. Didn't see it coming that McCready would blow up an entire floor of the building. Yeah, I did not see that coming as well. So the end has a lot of good twists to it, to be honest. It isn't suspicious at all that McCready calls his boss, or former boss, to tell him the building blew up when he doesn't even work there anymore. That is the epitome of suspicious. When your employee who you just fired is calling you from the building saying, hey, your building just exploded. That's definitely their way of saying, yeah, I just blew up your building. Yeah, definitely. A bunch of the sound effects in this film are like overly hokey, which I think adds to the kind of ridiculous, over the top, so bad it's good experience of the film. So I like that. Like, the primary one I'm talking about is when Nick and Daphne have sex in the van twice. And it's like rocking, and it's like that boing, boing, boing type noise. Like, it's so cartoony, but it's very much at home in this film. This movie is very random, and I'm here for it. I am so here for this film. It's so random. It's so ridiculous. I love it. I'm going to watch it again. I'm really excited to have it, and I'm really excited to have the slipcover version, because every time I take it out now, it just looks more beautiful. It's beautiful. Good job, Vinegar Syndrome. The film looks good for what it is. Ratings. I'm rating it two ways, obviously. As a overall, like, film in the pantheon of all films, it is a 1-star film. Probably half-star film, honestly. It's a half-star film. But as a so bad it's good film, this is a 4.5-star film, in my opinion. Now, some people may think I'm going a little too strong, but rewatch it. It is a 4.5-star so bad it's good film. I really do enjoy this film. I'm glad I finally watched it. Thank you everyone for the recommendations. Thank you for Vinegar Syndrome for putting out a nice version of it with some featurettes. I'm going to watch the other featurettes because I'm totally in on this now. That's what happens. Like, when you watch a film like this, you just then want to know, like, the behind the scenes stuff. Like, how did it get to this point? And it's very enlightening. It's very interesting. And it kind of makes me feel more invested in the film for when I watch it again. Gives it different context, too. So, anyway, would love to hear your comments about Hobgoblins. Put it down there. Give me, like, don't just say I like it, I don't like it. Just give me, like, a sentence or two telling me why. Do me a favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you can. And you can. It's quick, painless, costs you nothing, and I appreciate it a lot. Also hit the notification bell button, because then you know when I'm putting up new videos, which is 3 to 4 a week. Usually 4, sometimes 3, but regardless, thank you very much for checking out this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.